of the Tuesday, the 28th day of December. Bring in Glen Grunwald, and we have a guest.
Yes, we do have a guest, and I'm going to go to the phone line real quick and bring in John Wilson, who is with the Kansas Action for Children's nonprofit out of Topeka. Good morning, John.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
Yes, we got one more good day of weather, and then it's going to get a little crazy across Kansas. It's going to dip a little colder, but let's talk about quickly. You're the president of Kansas Action for Children, and a big push right now that I saw that you had was to try to eliminate the Kansas sales tax on food. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so you have it right. We are trying to eliminate the statewide sales tax on food, which is 6.5%. So when you and your listeners go to the grocery store, we want to cut off that portion of the receipt right there, and we know that by doing that, we can save the average Kansas family about $500 a year.
And that's substantial. That's substantial out of a lot of people's that are struggling to make ends meet budget each and every year. So, is this a petition that you're asking people to get involved with, or just exactly how can people support this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're asking individuals and organizations across the state to sign on to a letter that we're going to share with lawmakers when they reconvene in Topeka in January that asks lawmakers to do a fairly straightforward thing, pass a simple bill that eliminates the statewide sales tax on food, do it early in the legislative session so that retailers can prepare for that change come July 1. The great thing, Glenn, is that we know that there's bipartisan support for this policy proposal. I think the challenge is going to be that lawmakers will be tempted to add other things to that bill in order to make that happen, and so we're concerned that they will add things that become very expensive or that will actually take away from the state's ability to invest in really important programs for kids and families. So our message is simple. Just cut the statewide sales tax on food, pass it early in the session, and let retailers prepare for it, and then that allows families across Kansas who buy groceries to save lots of money.
Yeah, that's it, to get it in early, and that's the problem with a lot of the different legislative bills. Like you said, they'll go along with that, but they'll pass in something else that could, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul to some extent for some families. And that's
right.
Always a tough situation. So is that the primary Kansas Children's agenda right now, or of course you cover all across the state of Kansas, and the important thing is to make Kansas a better place to live for children, try to make it the best state available.
Yeah, you're right. So, I mean, this is one of the things that we're working with our partners on this legislative session, and obviously that's a big thing, that money in Kansans' pockets that they can use to pay for rent, pay for utilities, pay for car payment, whatever it might be. But we're also working on other things because we know that kids in Kansas don't just need one thing and families don't just need one thing. So we have our eye on some health issues. We think we need to expand Medicaid in Kansas, which is the health insurance program for low-income families. We need to do more to make child care more affordable in Kansas. It's a huge cost for families, and there's more that the state could be doing to support lowering the cost of child care.
We've had a lot of information in Hutchinson regarding just that. The cost of child care and availability of child care is really, really tough on some families to try to get that mom that wants to go back to work to be able to aid in working, getting into the workforce, and that is really a big problem. That's a big apple to take a bite out of.
Oh, man, it is. You probably realize this, that child care is the workforce behind the workforce. We can't get our economy back up and running without safe, high-quality places for kids to go while their parents work. So, and again, that's one of those issues that seems to have bipartisan support in the legislature and in Washington, D.C. It's just, it's finding the right bill and the right path to make it work.
I think the biggest thing is to take action. I've looked at your website, and you can, for folks that are listening, can go to www.kac.org, and you have an action drop down. It's to register to vote, to find your legislature. It gives you an intro to advocacy and also find help now. And those are great topics. And probably with some of this would start with finding your legislature and tell the legislature how you feel about these topics we're talking about.
And Glenn, you've got it right. I'll tell you, and one of the simplest things that you could do is find your lawmaker and send them a quick note by email, or maybe even pick up the phone when they get to their offices in January. And you don't have to be a tax policy expert. You don't have to know everything about the legislature. All you have to do is share your experience. And if you think groceries are too expensive right now, you call them up and say, You should eliminate statewide sales tax on food as soon as you can, and share whatever else is on your mind. I mean, the citizen legislature, the lawmakers work for us.
It's so important that people do that, and I think it's a small percentage that actually do step up and do that. And I hope that people would consider that and take it to mind and do just that, just you talked about. Now, a lot of the things that the Kansas Action for Children's group does is talk about food, shelter, health care, and education. That's a full bill to talk about. Basically, that's your mission right there for children in the state of Kansas to try to provide all those different items.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know that when kids have stability in their lives, and when parents can meet their basic needs, they're better parents. Kids end up with better health outcomes later on in life. So a lot of the times the issues that we talk about are kids' issues, but we know that kids can't raise themselves. So the parents and caregivers that support them need supports themselves. So that's why you'll see Kansas Action for Children advocating for a variety of issues, because we know it takes economic security, health security, nutrition, all of that to ensure kids have what they need to grow up healthy and thrive.
So important. We're talking with John Wilson, who's the president of the Kansas Action for Children's nonprofit group out of Topeka. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with talk with more with John right after this. Is located in Topeka, Kansas, covers the whole state of Kansas. John, I noticed you've been president and active with the organization for the last 4 years. I think you joined in 2017, and before that was a Kansas state representative. So that really gives you some knowledge into how the legislature works, and you're absolutely perfect for this position.
Well, thank you. This is my favorite job, and while I love being a lawmaker, being in an advocacy organization that focuses on the needs of kids and family brings me the greatest joy, and I think allows me to make some of the most significant changes, because I get to work with partners all across the state and not just in one district. But you're right; it's been valuable experience to have been inside the building and understand how the place works. And Glenn, I'll tell you, my secret to success, I think, is to remember that everybody who makes laws in that building are human beings, and there's while we might be working on policy change, it's really about people change and people talking to other people.
Well, that's amen on that one. So you're so correct. And early learning, health, and also the family economic security is so big. There's lots of programs out there that overlap with that, but at the same time, taking the children's agenda and taking that into consideration, some of the issues that take place. Where does Kansas rank? I didn't give you any information that I was going to ask this question, but where does Kansas rank amongst all those other states with caring for the children?
Well, so it's a good question. There's several different indicators. Kansas Action for Children manages the Kids Count program in Kansas, which collects the data and indicators across health, early learning, economic security, and so every year the Kids Count program, funded by the Annie E. Casey Foundation, puts out a book of where Kansas ranks, and depending on the domain, we're higher or lower. But and forgive me, I don't have it right off the top of my head, but we're in the mid-teens in our ranking compared to other states, and of course that changes year to year depending on the data and depending on things. And we know that this year the data is going to be really kind of skewed because of the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact.
Yeah, that's had an impact upon the workforce. It's had an impact on economy in a big way. Thank goodness, I think we are seeing in Kansas a little bit of a rise in the economy comparatively to the COVID year. Of course, we're still living in COVID, so that could change at any moment. And I think we're kind of lucky to be in the mid part of the U.S. so that we're not affected as quickly as some. It's probably going to be coming before too long, but you never know what's going to be taking place there. But how can people sign up to become a supporter of the Kansas Children's Agenda?
Glenn, I appreciate you asking that. I think the simplest way to do it is just go to KAC.org, and we have a sign-up box near the top of our website. We're also on Facebook and Twitter, so if you just go into Facebook and look for Kansas Action for Children, you can find us and like our page and like us on Twitter. And by signing up with KAC, you'll sign up for a newsletter that we send out monthly. And then during the legislative session, we send out regular updates about legislation that's affecting kids and families. So that's a weekly newsletter. And as you know, things move really quickly in the legislature. So folks can consider us their lobbyists in Topeka for any issues affecting kids and families.
Talk real quick about the 40-year history of the Kansas Action for Children. Started 40 years ago. Like I said, you've been involved in the last 4 years, but staff-wise that you have, and I know you're located in Topeka, but you have board of directors spread all across the state of Kansas.
We do. We think that makes us a much stronger organization when we have a diversity of our board members, geographically speaking, racially speaking, and from a professional standpoint. So we have board members as far as Northwest Kansas. We have board members in Southeast Kansas and the KC metro area and Wichita. That makes us a much more powerful organization. And our 40-year history is made possible by strong individual supporters and then foundations in Kansas and nationally. And we were founded actually by the Kansas Children's Services League and a couple of junior leagues out of Wichita and Topeka and Kansas City area, because they realized there wasn't an independent voice speaking up for kids in the Kansas legislature. So that's why they founded us, and we've been that independent voice for the last 40 years, and that means that we can say hard things that might need to be said that other groups can't say because their funding depends on the state.
And, of course, the biggest action right now is to try to get that sales tax knocked off the food portions. That would help those individual families a lot going into this year. And, again, we urge people to call their legislator and talk about that. You also provide the KAC blog. You have some audio and video available on your website. You've already mentioned the newsletters and also resources for COVID-19 as well as we head down. So it's a very aggressive agenda that you've taken on, and really hats off to the Kansas Action for Children. Thanks for explaining. I thought, how did this interact with the Kansas Children's League that I'd heard about years and years past? But you're a strong voice for kids in Kansas, and I wish you the best. And again, just real quick, how can people get a hold of you phone number-wise? I know you've already mentioned the website, which is KAC.org. Pretty easy to go to that, where you can either give a donation or also join you in your effort. What's a good way to get a hold of you?
I think the website is the best way to do it. Just KAC.org. Sign up for our form there, and there's also just an email address, KAC@KAC.org, if you want to email me, and we'll answer all your questions.
All right. Well, thank you, John. Chatting with John Wilson, who's the president of the Kansas Action for Children's organization out of Topeka. They got a big task ahead in trying to make Kansas the best place for children to live in the nation. We wish a lot of people to support you and wish you good luck in the new year, okay?